We're getting ready to start. Council, you ready? All right, at 6:00 p.m., I'm going to call the council to order. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon Keene, and thank you for your protection over Donald Trump. We can all see that it was by your grace and mercy that his life was spared. Continue to heal his pain and bring comfort to him and the other victims of this senseless tragedy, that they find hope in the face of despair. Watch over our meeting tonight and guide us that we come together as one with a shared purpose and common goal. Let us show respect and understanding toward one another, regardless of our individual beliefs or opinions. Let us remember that we are here to exemplify you by our words and actions. Let us set an example of cooperation and harmony so that others may follow in our footsteps. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Y'all may be seated. Thank you all for being here tonight. I don't know if it's just me, but it feels a little warm in the council chamber room. So I don't know if our air is completely working. I just have a couple of announcements. I just want to acknowledge that we had since our last meeting, we had our July 4 parade, and I want to thank the City of Keene and the Keene Chamber for sponsoring our event. We had a little bit lower turnout than usual, but it was still great, and I believe everybody had a great time and enjoyed it. And I would like to issue a big thank you to the veterans for allowing me to ride on their float this year. Our next meeting, July 20, 2024, this Saturday, there is a low-cost vaccine clinic taking place right here in the community center room. It's going to be from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and they're offering rabies vaccines for $5. All right, I'd like to briefly address the recent assassination attempt on Donald Trump. It is being considered that the words and actions of certain individuals and the media led to a hostile climate that precipitated the attempt on Trump's life, that did in fact cost a person his life and injured 2 other people. So council, I would like our city to learn from this situation, and I would like to state for the record that I do not condone hate speech or political violence of any kind as a solution to any problem. We are entering our own election season, and I would like us to pledge that we will say or do nothing, publicly or privately, to encourage anyone to feel that they need to take violent action just to keep one of us or anyone else from getting into office. The democratic process should smoothly take its course, and the voters will make the final decision. And that brings me to my last announcement about the upcoming elections. Applications are already available on the City of Keene website. The first day to file is Saturday, July 20. Since City Hall is closed that day, the next business date to file in person will be Monday, July 22nd. The last day to file will be Monday, August 19 at 5 p.m. 4 positions are up for election: Mayor, Ward 2, Place 1, and Place 3. You may live anywhere in the city to file for Mayor, Place 1, or Place 3. You must live in Ward 2 to file for Ward 2. There is a map on the city website to determine which ward you live in if you're not sure. Early voting and voting on November 5, our election day, will take place here in Keene at the community center. So that's great news for us. We don't have to travel to Cleburne anymore and go to the Walnut address. That'll save us all some questions and aggravation. So we'll try to make sure that we publicize that so people know. Council, do you have any other announcements that you guys would like to make? Okay, I would just like to do one little recognition. Holly, I just want to recognize you for the great work that you've done in our packets, and this packet specifically. I'd like to state that I like the new agenda for our cover that you did. She has designed a new format, if you guys haven't noticed. And I've already expressed that to you in an email, but I wanted to also acknowledge it publicly and to let everyone know that you're doing an exceptional job, and we're very happy to have you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, public comments. I'm going to start with Jamie Jones. And I believe, Council, you all have a little packet that she has brought to us about the Pioneers and Old Settlers reunion. That's this information right here.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. And yes, I agree, Holly was a great big help when I called and missed your last meeting, so she set me straight when we got here. My name is Jamie Jones, and I serve on the Board of Directors for the Johnson County Pioneer and Old Settlers Association. We are geared up and getting ready for the year. Now, this is Johnson County, just Alvarado to host it, but we're going to have a really fabulous 4 days. So it starts on August the 28th with our 6 p.m. parade, and we will go through town and end up at the reunion grounds. That night, we will honor the person who won the floats in different categories, and we'll have our Queen contestant that night. We encourage anyone that lives in Johnson County, or if you live in Johnson County and you know somebody that's outside Johnson County, 15 to 21, the winner of this contestant gets a $1,000 scholarship to college. So nowadays, any penny that goes to college is a penny we don't have to pull out of our pocket somewhere. So it's very important that we can do that. Tuesday, we have our baby contest. If you have babies, grandbabies, great-grandbabies, or great-great-grandbabies, please get registered and let's have some fun with those. They are so sweet, and I get to MC them. So it just makes for a wonderful, smiley night. And then on Friday, we have our fiddle contest. And of course, we always bring the house down with those. There's a whole new category now with that, and so the talent there is just unbelievable. Saturday, 9 a.m. If you are a baker or you like to bake, we have our bake-off contest, and they've already told me I can't be a judge because I don't eat chocolate. But we need a judge to come in and taste, and we will announce the winner of that around 1 o'clock. And then starting after that, Texas Troubadour Gunfighters will have a reenactment at 2 p.m., 5 p.m., and 6:30. Now, I don't know if you've ever read the history of Johnson County or the history in Alvarado, where the two gunfighters was actually taken care of by the citizens. It's going to be kind of a reenactment of a lot of the Johnson County history there, so it's going to be fun. And then, of course, at 5:30, I'm humbled and honored to be able to do the first responder tributes again this year. As I've done in the past, this will be our 4th year, and it's a time when I, for one, want to definitely say thank you to all of our first responders. Without them, we're running out, they're running in. There's not enough in the world to go around for me to say how grateful and thankful I am. I enjoy doing those, and I love meeting the new officers and the ones that win and the firemen. It's humbling to me. And then, of course, at 7 o'clock, we start our free concerts. So we have 2 different things going on that night, 2 different entertainment bands on stage. So I've left you our little flyer. If you have any questions on anything that's within there, we have designated people that can help you. I want to see all of us there, and I want you all to be a part of it as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamie. We appreciate you coming. Thank you. Okay, Paul Knott.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I want to recognize all of you. It should be recognized and not go unnoticed that there's 100% attendance here for the City Council. So thank you very much for fulfilling your responsibility to your elected office. Thank you. I want to remind you, The 9th Candidates Forum, City Council Candidates Forum, is Tuesday, October 15th, 6:30 p.m. in the Community Center. So for those of you who are candidates for a position on the City Council, I think you should have enough time to make sure that Tuesday, October 15th, your calendar is free, and we certainly would like you there that night. Tuesday, October 15th, City Council Candidates Forum. On a little lighter note, the 31st birthday of the Keene Chamber of Commerce, the birthday celebration is next Thursday, a week from today, 11:30 to 1 at the Community Center. Good time will be had by all, and we're raising money for the Flag Fund that day. If you bring a check for $100, our goal at our 31st birthday is to raise $3,100. We already have $1,600 raised. So we just need 16 of you to bring $100, and we're there. All right, thank you.
No pressure.
Thursday, July 25, a week from today, is the Chamber Luncheon. That's the 31st birthday. The Candidates Forum is Tuesday, October 15th, a week before the beginning of early voting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knott. Okay, Anthony Lindsay. How are you tonight?
Hello, my name is Anthony Lindsay. I live at 1005 Christine Street. I want to start the thought off by saying I grew up in this town. Over the years, I've seen our tightly knitted community really develop, and I want to continue this theme by proposing a community garden. I think a community garden would be a very positive addition to our community, allowing, folks who don't have very much to be able to have food, provide an additional source of food, allowing us to better communicate with our community, and allowing us to have a vision we can achieve together. I'm curious about using a land like, I have it written down here, Pocket Park in order to accomplish this goal. I don't know what I'd have to do, so if you have any suggestions, please do let me know. And that's it for me. Thank you for your time, and God bless.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that suggestion. All right, Jamie Moore. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you, ma'am? Mayor, council, my name is Jamie Moore. I'm the Emergency Management Director and the County Fire Marshal for Johnson. On your agenda tonight, you're going to see a consent piece that would typically be pretty easy to overlook, but I wanted to just take a second to point out in our hazard mitigation plan, which is on your consent that hopefully you will adopt in resolution, is a process that started in 2020 and just now got completed within the last 6 weeks. So this is a 4-year project that Johnson County, in cooperation with your municipality and every other municipality within this county, has been working on for years and years, and unfortunately years, to get passed through FEMA, and that has been done. I wanted to say, in addition, with that, it could not have been done without the partnership specifically of Chief Warner. You have a fantastic fire chief who, not only in this process, but all the processes that we have within the county, the mutual aids that occur, the partnerships that occur in our planning processes, as well as our response to wildland fires and tornadoes and floods, can always depend upon Chief Warner to be there and participate as a partner in this community. And I wanted to specifically take a moment to let you know, at least on my behalf and Johnson County's behalf, that we appreciate that partnership. We don't see that everywhere within the county. The majority of places we do, but there are a few that struggle with that. And with Chief Warner, there's just never a question. There's never a question. If I call him and there's any way he can participate, he will participate. And I just really appreciate that. I think it's a good reflection upon your city. And I wanted you to specifically know that. So thank you. Thank you for your consideration of our hazard mitigation plan. If you didn't know, without that plan and without your adoption of the resolution that's before you, You wouldn't qualify for hazard mitigation funds if we have a disaster that affects Keene or Johnson County as a whole, and you want to improve your water system. You need to improve a roadway or a culvert. All those monies come from FEMA through mitigation, and you would not be eligible if you were not under this plan and hadn't adopted this plan. So it's an important thing. It happens every 5 years, so thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. And we do know that we have a fantastic fire chief, and we're glad that he's back with us from a slight absence. All right. All right, that's all for the yellow cards that I received. Is there anybody that would like to speak that did not fill out a yellow card? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on then to agenda item number 4, reports. A, receive and discuss the city manager's report. Mr. Batla?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have one thing tonight. I wanted to update you on some cybersecurity. It's actually part of our budget discussion, but we do have a new vendor that's completed a very thorough audit, given us a list of equipment and procedures, training, et cetera, that we need, software. We do have some of those implemented. The staff has completed our cybersecurity training, and we have some of our email monitoring software that monitors for viruses, et cetera, and that has been completed as of last week. Our new vendor's doing a great job. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update. I know cybersecurity is a is a big recent thing here, and so we're on top of it. And again, that's part of our budget presentation, but I want to let you know where we're at currently on that. Thank you.
All right, Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Batla? Mr. Batla, could you give us an update on the grants for Fairview Street?
Yes, I did talk to our grant administrator on that. They are still waiting on the grant side to receive that, but as far as we're concerned, we've got everything in that we need to, so they're just waiting on that.
Are we under any kind of a time deadline to start it before, so we don't lose funding?
We are, but that's quite a ways out.
Okay,
That's
we're okay.
over a year out.
Okay. I had one other question. We discussed this at the last meeting about the community doors being open when we had weekend events in order to be ADA compliant. I stopped by this weekend. There was a baby shower going on, and the doors were locked, and they were closed. Did you get that direction that you know that we're going to be doing that? Have you passed that information on to staff? Were they aware that we're supposed to be leaving those doors open now?
I don't know if that got passed on or not.
Are we going to have them open for the low vaccine
If someone
clinic?
needed entry, they certainly would have let them in.
Okay.
So,
Because I did notice there were some individuals struggling to come in the other door, and we needed them open, since that was, I believe, the consensus that council came to at the last meeting.
yeah, I don't know if that got passed on. But
It's in our minutes.
what's that?
I was going to say it's in our minutes tonight, the consensus that council wanted those doors open so that we didn't pay for a ramp or stops for our parking spaces. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Batla? Okay, item number 4B, receive and discuss the financial report for the month ending June 30, 2024. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good to see everyone. Yes, thank you. This is for the month of June. This is our 9th month. And here's the revenue section of it. As you can see, for property taxes, we're well over the target that we have for the year, which is a very favorable. The other thing I want to point out on the revenue is the court, where they reach above their target budget as well, which is good news going forward. In comparison to June of last year, we're a little bit behind. Most of that, it was that 1.5 when we received that for the fire engine and truck that was put into that. So that skewed the numbers, so forth. Or else it'll be around 80% without that 1.5 that we got for the fire engine and truck to purchase those two items. Other than that, any questions? The expenditures, just an overview. The numbers down to the bottom end, we're still well below the target at 70%. The target is 75%, so we are keeping track of that. The only thing that really sticks out is the non-departmental. I can explain that. With TML, Risk Insurance Pool, their rates has increasingly went up across the state, not only to the city of Keene. We cannot control that. So those numbers went dramatically high this year. So that's what's being reflected. Any questions? Here's our sales tax. These are just estimated totals right now. The comptroller at the state of Texas, we have not received that until after the printing of this. So it'll be close or near that figure. But I was doing a straight line prediction from what we've been receiving the last 6 months. So those numbers will change in the August report. And you can see the comparisons with last year. Property tax, those numbers are actuals. And as you can see, we are doing far greater than last year with those numbers. So we're doing very well on that with a couple months ago. The amount's gonna be very minimal or small as the season goes on. Most of the revenue comes between the end of October to the 1st of February, and that's across the state. So we receive more than our share. Water and sewer, very quickly with that, the numbers somewhat below the target on that. The only thing that is right at target above it is the sanitation billing from Republic. But everything is well below, and as I've been indicating all year, those has a lot to do with the fees and the indicators of such. But overall, we're doing okay. We're just about 5% below the target. I would say close to 280,000 less than last year at this time in revenues. So that you can kind of see how important the fees are. Any questions?
Yes. Residential water billing, June 23 actuals has an extra digit. Which ones should not be there?
I'm sorry?
The June 2023 actuals on residential water billings, 1,000,1938. That's too many digits.
Yes, you take out that one.
That's, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
But thank you for that error. Any other questions? I have a question. Yes.
So if we could go back to property tax, and I know we're above on property tax, is that due to every one of us having higher appraisals on our properties, so actually more money is coming in because of that?
Very good question. Most of that, if y'all recall, the last legislation in Austin, the legislature passed a law indicating about property tax would somewhat decrease in a certain amount. It overjoyed with other cities like us that we can get more revenue from that because it affects our M&O side, the general fund. It doesn't affect the debt service. So really the appraisal value, yes, that does have an impact. That's a very good point. But it also impact what they had governed going forward with the property taxes. And speaking of that, the property tax for this year, which be finalized by this time next week, we will infuse those numbers into the budget. So the numbers that our city manager and finance team has put together is just preliminary. So to your question, yes. And going forward with property tax, they're going to be somewhat concerned on the horizon because we do have frozen taxes. We do have a lot of exemption taxes. So all of that impacts our overall revenue, but we'll discuss that during the budget workshop. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Sir,
Yes.
I have a question, I think it's in regard to that. Holly, our city secretary, sent us a memo today, and I was very confused by that. It shows us at 119% average.
Yes, sir.
Can you expound on that?
Thank you, Councilman Bells. That's a very good question. I received that as well with a smile. Whenever there is an excess over that 100%, that keeps us afloat to make sure we pay off our debt. And as you know, we included the fire engine and truck as well with our loan and obligation debt. So with that excess, I like to keep it well above the 100% so we have enough money in our balance to carry forward to pay on the debt for the following year. Most cities scrunch for that and take money out of general fund to help pay for those. We don't have to. We have enough suffice debt revenue to carry us over for the next year. And that's how it should be. And if y'all recall, about a few years ago, when I first started, we were scrambling for revenue from debt service to pay up. And that's why I say that's a very good question, Mr. Belts. You don't have to worry about that anymore. It's been well taken care of. So those numbers, you want to see 119%. So I left with a smile because that would continue over to 25 and also to 26. 2 years above the time, so we're in good shape. Thank you. And the water sewer I mentioned before, those are the numbers. And then here's the monthly on the water revenue side, a little bit below target on that. And I give credit to our director, Derek Malone, keeping expenses at bay, well below the target. So both figures are very favorable. So I appreciate our director for keeping track of that in the expenses. He does a very good job on that. Same side is the sewer. Those numbers that is highlighted, $257,806 is reserved for developers agreement. We've been carrying that number over until it's been utilized. It may not be this year, most likely it might be in the following years. Mr. Martin, our director, he's been doing a great job at bringing in businesses. So that 257 can be utilized in a great way for that. And keep in mind, we have to keep that restricted just for that use, nothing else, not for general fund, not for water and sewer, just for this restricted use. So I have to keep that in mind as well for the finance team. But those are the numbers. Thank you. And then last but not least, this is the investment report. A little bit change up. You'll be seeing a lot of ClearGov information across the board. I've been using Excel spreadsheets since I've been here. Those are no longer the case. You'll be seeing a lot of reports very similar to this. It's very sound, basic, and actual. It comes straight from the computer, no adding or changing or anything. All these numbers come straight from Pinnacle Bank. You can contact Ms. Sarah Layton, and she can go over those numbers with you. And it's to the penny as far as what those numbers incurred. These are monthly reports. Normally, under my charge or any finance director, they do it quarterly. But for the spirit of transparency, I'd rather do it monthly because we get monthly bank statements. And you have the right to know what it is in 1 month, 30 days, instead of 90 days. Anything can happen in the 90 days. So I want to be as transparent as possible. And my charge as a finance director normally is the 90-day requirement under the PFIA Act. But I'd rather do it 30 days for the city of Keene, for the council, and for the citizens, for transparency's sake. But those are the numbers, and that's the end of the June report.
All right, any questions for Mr. Williams?
And I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Under the ARPA COVID CARES funds, we show the beginning balance and the ending balance. We have an interest payment there. Where did that money go? Was it spent, or is it go in the general fund?
We keep it there until our city manager and myself decide where we want to do with those funds, but we keep it there until such direction is given. Yes, sir.
What do you mean direction is given?
The 4,226 that you see for the ARPA funds, since that was presented to council as a federal grant, I'd rather have it presented to council as far as what direction you want to do it with, because I do not want to make a decision on my own or the city manager for that. I'd rather come to you at the end of the year. If it's around 5,000, I say, what do you want to do with $5,000? And I'd rather lay it on the decision of the mayor and the council instead of in the hands of the city manager and the finance director.
So you answered my question by saying at the end of the year. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Williams? All right, thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you again.
Appreciate it. Okay, we are moving on to agenda item 5A, public hearing. Are we going to have somebody present to this before I open up the public hearing? Or I can just read what's here?
We do have our city engineer
Okay.
here if there's any questions, but
Okay.
we don't have a presentation.
Okay, so the purpose of this public hearing, citizens, is to consider the adoption of water and wastewater impact fees. We've been discussing this now for the last few months. So tonight will be the last public hearing and the final vote and decision on this item as to whether or not we adopt impact fees. And then any development that comes in after tonight's date will then be subject to those fees. Did I give a good enough explanation? Did that work? Okay, so the amount of the proposed maximum water impact fee we have is $2,013 per water service unit. The wastewater impact fee, the proposed amount for that will be $3,623 per wastewater service unit. So the exact amount of impact fees to be levied at or below the maximum will be determined by us tonight after the public hearing. Any member of the public has the right to appear at the public hearing and present evidence for or against the proposed plan and these impact fees. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 6:33 p.m. Would anybody like to speak to this agenda item from the public? Yes, Mr. Schramm, step forward, please.
Of course, I have questions. West Schramm, 1002 West 4th Street. And I was not, I have not paid attention to the studies that have been going on, and I know there's been a lot of background check on this, or to develop these impact fees. I guess the bottom line question is, are they based loosely on building code that we are following? And that would be my recommendation if that was the case.
Okay, Mr. Turner, you want to go ahead and take that?
So I think the answer is the building code is not a direct element of the information that's used in the study. It's based more on capital improvement items that are in your capital improvement plan. However, those are related directly to the building code, and that whatever's in that plan has to meet the city's building code and the city's desires in that regard.
Okay, did that answer your question? Okay. Anybody else from the public would like to speak during the public hearing? All right, at 6:35 PM, I'm going to close the public hearing. At this time, we're going to move to Agenda 5B. Following the public hearing, the City Council may review, consider, or approve the adoption of an ordinance adopting the water and wastewater impact fees. And our packet says, please note that the City Council shall, within 30 days after the public hearing, approve or disapprove of an impact fee. We've already got our attorney to put this in the agenda now, that we can go ahead and make that decision tonight rather than waiting any further. So council, I just need a motion, or if you have any discussion or questions about it that we need to ask. Yes, Ms. Beeson?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Bales was.
Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Bells?
Okay. Under section 55-42 in our packet, I'm a little bit confused by some of this wording. I guess the second time I've been confused tonight, but under item B, impact fees collected pursuant to this chapter may not be used to pay for any of the following expenses, and it lists construction, acquisition, or expansion of capital improvements. Now, that may read on and help me, but I think we just talked about capital improvements. So can you give us a little bit more on that?
All right, what's that section again, Mr. Bells?
55-42, page 10 of 16 is where I'm reading it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what it's saying is that you cannot use impact fees for capital improvements or assets other than those on the capital improvements plan. In other words, the concept of impact fees is you figure out, here's where we are now, here's where we're gonna be at least 10 years from now. If we grow like this, what are the things we're gonna need to build because of the new development? Water and sewer. And then those are part of the impact fee capital improvements plan. Those are the things for which you issue the impact fee. What this is saying, you can't use impact fee money on improvements that are not impact fee eligible. That's what that's saying, is that you cannot use it on capital improvements that are not capital improvements that are part of the impact fee plan, because the whole concept is you issue these fees to pay for these certain designated things, this laundry list of things that you're gonna need. So you can't use that money for things that aren't on the list.
Okay, sewer has been my big question for several years now, and I know that's on our list. So my question was, obviously, are we going to be able to get to that sewer? And I have another question, if I might, Mayor. Does this affect any previous plats before the day that we put this in force? In other words, builders that already have plats in place but have not acquired building permits yet.
It states that in
Yeah,
here.
there's something in here that actually discusses that, if I remember correctly, and you may remember, but it talks about for plats that occur before a certain date, how they're
Isn't it like-
treated, and plats after the implementation of this. Let's see where that's in here somewhere. Okay.
Well, I see under
Ba-
five,
Basically, if you look on it's page, I guess, 7 of 16 of, it's section 55-27, assessment of impact fees. It says basically for new development for which recordation of final plat occurred before July 18, 2024, and a building permit issued within a year of said date, no impact fees will be collected. If no building permit is issued by July 17, 2025, then you can do it. So basically, it's kind of a grace period. If you've already got a plat approved and the new fees go into place, you basically get a year to get building permits without having to meet the impact fees. After the year, then you have to pay the impact fees. That's how I understand it.
so we have a number of builders out here with, we've told any number between 900 and 1,100 homes. If they don't get in that grace period of 1 year, then it goes it affects them.
Yeah, they have to pay it. I mean, the goal is, I mean, yeah, I mean, basically, since those plats are approved before there was an impact fee, the thought is, okay, you're gonna have a certain period of which you don't have to pay the fee. I believe that's correct.
I think we had a development agreement, though, for that. So would this wouldn't supersede that or be added on top of that, right?
No, but if you have a development agreement, I mean, obviously, the development agreement will address fees that are gonna be paid or improvements are gonna be made. To the extent any development agreement requires you to put in an improvement that is in essence a impact fee capital improvement, then we won't double dip. There's provisions in here for refunds and credits or whatever. So at the end of the day, if you've already put in, or you're obligated to put in certain improvements or money in lieu of improvements, and those same improvements would be something that would be on the impact fee, then you wouldn't have to pay your full impact fees and pay the other funds on top of that if those same funds were being used to pay for impact fee eligible improvements.
Do we have development agreements with all or most of the big developments that we have going?
Yes.
I detected a hint of not sure on that, or. No, I don't mean on the development agreements. I mean, if they have to pay for the building, or.
It's spelled out in the developer's agreement that until those properties are built out, they're not required to pay impact fees because we didn't have them at the time.
At the time, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if you look at page 12 of 16, there's a section called offsets, refund, appeals, and other relief. And it basically sets forth the program to handle all those kind of things, to make sure that nobody is getting double dipped. And that is for credits, they've got them for refunds. There's also an appeal procedure here. If somebody feels that it's not, I've already paid, or I shouldn't have to pay twice, there's an appeal provision. So the ordinance is full of what I would call protections for developers and landowners and due process, so that nobody feels like, wait a minute, I have no choice but to do this. It's like, well, that's what our requirements are, but you always have the ability to bring that to city council and to make your argument as why the fee shouldn't be applied, or for whatever reason.
I am very concerned about the cost that it's going to, for our builder, whether it be a single home or 24 homes. I pulled up Cleburne's impact fee schedule today, and ours is about almost doubled what theirs is. And that concerns me.
Can I ask you, are these fees, are they already capped at the 50% level?
Yes.
Okay, because
Yeah.
there's actual, the law, I mean, there's the maximum you could assess, and that would be you collect every dollar that that a newcomer impacts your water and sewer. But state law says you can either cap that at 50% as your starting spot, or you have to go through a rather complicated study to give those people credit for the benefits they bring too, and most cities just do 50. So these fees here that we're looking at, they're already capped at 50%. Okay.
Right. And one other thing, so if you compare Cleburne to Keene, these impact fees are substantially based on, in addition to the capital improvement plan total cost, they're also based on, so that's divided by the number of connections in the system that they would expect to see. And so if theirs is much greater than yours, that number is going to be a lot higher for you. So if you compare it to a lot of communities the size of Keene, I think, and I can go back and look, but I believe you fall somewhere in the middle on most of it.
We were pretty competitive.
Yeah, pretty competitive compared to other communities of your size.
Do the other small cities have impact fees?
Most of the ones around the Metroplex in a circumference that you would be in do or are in the process of creating them now.
I know this is something that should have been done years ago, but I mean, it just looks like we're trying to collect it all here in this first year or something. That amount just kind of startles me.
Yeah, I believe a developer going anywhere in a similar location around the Metroplex would see similar costs.
I mean, generally speaking, what most of my city councils do, they figure, okay, here's the maximum amount we could charge. And then we figure out, well, what are our neighboring cities? We wanna collect enough to be able to build the things we need to build so that your current residents, you know, you don't wanna have it turn on the water and it doesn't work, or the sewer's not enough. So you have to do something to address new development. But at the same time, you don't wanna run off new development and send them all to your neighbors. So it's a hard thing, which is why most cities try to find something that's kind of in the middle, you know, of the range of your neighbors, so that there's no reason here for someone to say, well, I'm not going to go to Keene because it's too darn expensive, if next door it's basically the same price, or next door it's basically the same price.
Yeah, Mr. Easley?
Are these fees waivable? Is there appeal process if somebody wants to come in and build and says, I just can't afford this, but I want to build here? Is there a way to appeal that
Yeah,
fee?
the ordinance allows you to do, well, and also you can do development agreements with waivers and stuff. And a lot of cities will waive impact fees as part of like an economic development. Okay, you really want somebody here, you have some commercial industry that's coming here, you really want to land it, and you say, we'll waive or reduce the impact fee. So you have that option. But I remind council that anytime that every dollar you waive is a dollar that you are now obligated to come up with somewhere else. Because the basic promise of impact fees is that, okay, everybody is paying money into the kitty so that all these things can be built. So if this person over here is paid 100% of their impact fees so that certain things get built, and then later on you say, well, we're not going to be able to build those things like we said we were going to because we didn't collect enough money from this person over here, then they're going to have the ability to get refunds back. So, you know, I tell cities, like a lot of cities think it's like free money. I'll just waive impact fee. Well, you're just moving that responsibility from somebody else to you, which is fine. That's a judgment call. But the whole concept of impact fees is that everybody that's paying into the system is doing so because they have an expectation for at least within like 10 years, these things will be built. So those things still got to get built. And if you don't have the money to build them from impact fees, you're going to have to value engineer it or redo your impact fees, but you're going to have to take that money. So the answer is yes, you can waive fees, you can reduce fees, but there is an impact to you, so you need to think about it very carefully before you do it.
Ms. Gillen, would you like to speak?
Mayor, council, I was on the impact committee here. The builder that was on that committee with us thought these rates here were very reasonable. He said the other places that they had built, and I think he has 2 projects going here in our city, right, Mr. Bella?
He did.
And he thought they were very reasonable, so, you know, to me, with the builder saying that he thought they were reasonable, I'm not an engineer, I don't know, but we were going through a lot of different things, and I felt like he was right. And if he felt like it was good and he was still building here, we're okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gillen.
Mayor,
Yes.
to add to that, and I know I'm on this sewer thing, but when he stood up there 18 months or so ago and told us about the millions and millions of dollars we're going to spend on a sewer plant, I almost choked. And if we don't look at this now and get this bull by the horns, we're all going to be choking.
Got a pretty shocking slide tonight, my presentation on that, so.
Any other questions, council, or discussion?
I mean, I will say that a lot of my city councils, when they first adopt impact fees, they are real hesitant because it seems like they're putting a new burden on people that they don't have before. But like you say, the reality is that you're going to have these things. So you can either make the newcomers pay for at least part of it, or your other option is that you're going to wind up having to pay out of your own pockets, which means you waive property taxes on everybody, or you have to go out and do debt, bonds, certificates of obligation, which basically are secured by the property taxes forever, so by everybody. So the theory is that you're trying to not put the burden on your current taxpayers. to pay for all of the need that's being created solely by new people. So it really is, to me, it's fundamentally fair to make the newcomers pay for at least part of the impacts that they're putting on your system. Because otherwise, you're gonna go to your existing property, your existing citizens, and make them pay in some form or fashion for the impacts that new people are paying for, are causing. And so, you know, you hear the argument from the development communities, oh, it didn't seem fair, I didn't have to pay for this before, but I mean, it's the practical reality now with financing the way it is. If you want to have any chance to remotely keep up with your needs, you have to have a vehicle to impose these kind of fees on new development.
I have a question. On the impact fees, now what we collect for our water and then the impact fees for the sewer, do they have to be accounted for separately?
Yep, separate funds. You can only use water impact fees to pay for things that are on the water impact eligibility list. Wastewater fees can only be used for that. You don't have road impact fees. Some of my clients have roads. They can only be doing them roads. So basically, the fees they're earmarked, they're segregated, they're for accounting purposes, they're separate accounts. And yes, you can't borrow from Peter to pay Paul, you know, and I've had cities say, well, I got a lot of money in the water and I'm short in the wastewater, can I just borrow? And it's like, not really, because it's not just a utility, it's not a utility impact fee, it's a water, wastewater, so those things are separate and they're calculated to pay for things that are, you know, on those, you got the wastewater improvements list and you got the water improvements list, so they can only be used for those.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
That brings me to a question then. I understand the sewer plant was on the wastewater capital improvement plan. What was on the water side for improvement?
There were substantially on that list were water line replacements and upsizes. There were also, I think there were some well site improvements. There were some additional improvements at well site 7 to the pumping facilities there.
Again?
But by and large, it was, yeah, not the well, but the pump station. But by and large, it was line work, distribution lines.
So even though that line would not serve the newcomers, we could still use it for capital improvement here inside the city?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two sides to the answer to that, but one is in a distribution system, all of those lines really impact everyone. So it's not like in very isolated cases, you may have a single line that'll serve and not impact anybody else, but for the most part, the distribution system as a whole would impact the entire system for any given development that comes into town. In other words, it has to go through that system to get to that location. Does that make sense?
But if we get a development on the west side of town, but we start doing improvements on the east side, are we going to get in trouble?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you may have comment about that, but generally, as I said, it's hard to identify. The entire system is looped in multiple
It's
places.
all linked,
so-
but I'm just, since.
Well, no, I mean.
Attorney here's always, you know, like, hey, we can't use this for that, and, you know, I just want to make.
Yeah, I've never heard of that being.
Water systems are all unified and sewer system, unless you're like in El Paso, there's a mountain in between. The only fees that are segregated by geographic areas are roadway fees or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, existing customers can incidentally benefit from the new improvements. So you can't use impact fees to kind of bridge the gap. If like here today, say, here's where we need to be today. Here's where we are right now. Well, you can't use impact fees to get from where you are now to where you should be, because that way you'd be making the newcomers pay for your current gap. That current gap's got to be taken care of with something else, and I'm sure that's one of the things the wastewater study looked at was, you know, where are you, what's that gap, and it's already discounted and accounted for that. But it's only going to be used, but by improving the wastewater system that's directly attributable to newcomers, you typically wind up with a better system that helps, especially for water and sewer, just like got roads too. So there's benefits to your existing residents, even though they're not directly paying for it.
So the other part of the answer to that question is, and I don't know if you recall, but when we went over the full presentation on this, talking about how these are calculated, when you take that, each individual item on that that capital improvement list, then you have to do a discount for how much that improvement actually benefits new development. So you're not, like you said a while ago, you're kind of not double dipping on existing customers. So in that way, it's kind of proportioned out for only the impact that it has on the new development.
And you don't have to adopt the fees tonight. The law says after you have the public hearing, you have 30 days. So you would have at least one more bite at the apple if you wanted to study it more. But my understanding, it sounds like it's already been looked at, and they've already had committees looked at it. They've already made recommendations based on what your neighbors do. So the folks that have kind of studied it have recommended this.
I have a question, Mayor. And based on this ordinance, I know the most common problem with most cities, when I normally speak to small developers. Small developers, I mean somebody that wants to build 1 or 2 or 3 homes versus a developer that wants to build maybe 300 homes or 600 homes. I know there is a provision under the Texas, the development program, that's a 380 agreement, where the city can give a developer some kind of, it's kind of like compromising in a way to give them a lower, maybe
It's an
help
economic
them with the
development
grant. Yes.
incentive, yeah.
So how does this ordinance, how will this ordinance take care of the issue where we have the 380 agreement and these big developers, the cities are willing to give them some break on some of the fees that the city should be able to collect, versus the small developers who want some relief to be able to develop, but the cities normally don't want to even listen to them. So how will this ordinance help small developers so that they are not taking the raw hand of the deal?
I'm not sure I have an answer to that question, but I would say that when you're considering a 380 or any other kind of incentive package for a larger development, the city is most likely considering the benefit that that's bringing to the community in sales tax, property tax, and those types of things. So I think that's a case-by-case decision the council makes based on what they feel the benefit is.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I would jump in there. That would be a council decision on all 380 agreements. We would bring that to council.
Okay, thank you.
And the impact fees also give you a revenue source, because the reality is, the impact, once people start paying impact fees, that doesn't mean that the things they need are going to be able to be built right away, because you got to collect enough money to do it. So it's not uncommon for a significant developer, for a city to say, look, we can't allow this to go in because you're going to have such an impact on the water and sewer, and we don't have enough impact fees to build what needs to be done. So as part of a development agreement, the developer says, I'll tell you what, I'll build the stuff up front, okay? And I get credit, and then basically as the impact fees roll in, you pay me back. Because a lot of times, if you don't have impact fees, there's really no real revenue source there. You could say, well, we're going to have a pro rata agreement. Everybody that ties onto a line pays a little bit, but those are real hard. So it gives you the ability to negotiate with developers who want to do significant development versus just a little piece here, a little piece there. I mean, a significant subdivision, knowing that they're going to build in a lot of the impact fee eligible improvements themselves so they can immediately develop, but they know that they'll have the ability to get paid back because as others contribute to the impact fee kitty, other people around the town that are benefiting from their development, they'll have that revenue source. Those cities that have impact fees, my experience, they've found it gives them a much more significant tool in their economic development toolkit, for lack of a better word, to try to have larger developments and more unified developments versus just somebody buys 2 or 3 lots, I build here, I build there. You don't necessarily get the sense of neighborhood, because a lot of times it's real hard to have that significant development without the ability of that developer to have some guarantee they're gonna get repaid for fronting all the costs that the development is requiring, needs to be put in the ground.
Thank you.
We did say this was the maximum water impact fees and wastewater, and then I think I asked this question before, that we can reduce it. So it could, in a developer agreement or 380.
Yes, in a
So
developer's
if they were
agreement,
building
I would
300
assume you'd have
homes,
that
we can
right.
come back and come
Right.
off
You-
of this.
You can do individual development agreements, you
Yeah.
can waive them, you can reduce them, but like, once again, understand every dollar you choose not to collect from the development community is a dollar you put on yourself that you have to come up with somewhere within that window that you've obligated yourself to build all these capital, impact fee, capital improvements.
Yeah, Ms. Mason?
But would we need to be very careful on waiving this one for that one? I mean, would that be favoritism?
Well, no, well, it's favoritism. I mean, everybody, well, I mean, who knows what goes in somebody's mind when they vote on something, but every deal is, stands on its own 2 feet, but it's just the acknowledgement, knowing that it will be a cost that you're shifting to yourself, and it happens all the time. I mean, there could be a particular development you really want to see a neighborhood. I mean, I've had cities have a particular neighborhood that's very little developments going there. They want to catalyze, they want to do something to encourage growth in this part of the community because it's just not happening. And they say, okay, here's the deal. We'll cut your impact fees in half. We know we're going to wind up paying for it, but what you're getting from it is you have a vision for a particular area to be developed. So all those things can be taken account of. So, I mean, I think as a general rule, that what fees you set should be fees that you expect that most people are going to pay. I mean, I wouldn't recommend you say, I'm going to set this fee, and then I'm just going to, on everybody that comes in, I'm going to cut it down, because you're really digging yourself a hole as to what you're willing to do. So the fees need to be fees that you think are fair to the development community, and fees that, for the most part, you can live with day to day. But there may be special circumstances that warrant reduction or even waiver of fees because of other benefits that a project brings to the city.
Yes, Mr. Foster?
Would there be any wisdom in just making these even numbers, like 2,000 for the water and 3,500 for the sewer, just so that it doesn't become an accounting nightmare for people that come in?
Well, I mean, the reason they come out to these, I mean, they waive the cents typically. The reason it comes out to these deals is because they are mathematical calculations.
I know an engineer.
I don't think he's going to be, insulted by, 2013 versus 2000. I mean, personally, I don't think there's any real administrative benefit. They'd be like saying, well, we're gonna round everybody's water bill to this or that, or your electricity bill. So, I mean, these are the numbers that, if you want to reduce them, that's fine, but I'm not sure I would reduce them just because the number is a rounder, cleaner number. I'm not sure you really get any benefit for that as compared to the dollars that you're leaving on the table.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I think I could take away from what our attorney's telling us. He's being polite about it, and I'm not going to really be. Now, several of us sitting up here, it's an election year. So we're going to say, oh, this might affect this and this might affect that. But it's our duty to take care of this community for the next 10 years. It's been reported to me that in 10 years, our sewer system needs a major fix. He says he's got something on it tonight, and these numbers are astounding. So compassion is really ruled out here. He's telling us, if we give it away here, we've got to get it for somewhere else. There's really no place else to get it.
Yes, Mr. Foster?
On that happy note, I'll make a motion to move that the ordinance be adopted to assess and collect water and wastewater impact fees with the maximum assessable impact fee per service unit for water is $2,013, and wastewater facilities is $3,623, with an effective date of July 18, 2024.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to adopt Move that an ordinance be adopted to assess and collect water and wastewater impact fees with the maximum assessable impact fee per service unit for water is $2,013, and wastewater facilities is $3,623, and with an effective date of July 18, 2024, by Foster and a second by Johnson. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 6, consent agenda. Council, we have 2 items under our consent agenda tonight. Does anybody have any requests to remove either one of those for discussion? If not, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to accept the consent agenda as presented by Beeson, seconded by Easley. All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous, motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, review and discuss fiscal year 2025 budgeting overview.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to address our audience real quick. I apologize for only one display working. As you all know, we've been chasing gremlin in the system since the big power surge, and I did want you all to be able to see it tonight rather than pass out a whole bunch of 40-some page handouts. So we manually wired one TV up that's working. So, but we got something for y'all. So I will go ahead and get started. I'd like to start the budget by kind of a fiscal year in review. So I think this is a nice positive review. Some of the expenditures that were approved this year. We bought a fire truck. We've done quite a bit of sidewalk work. You see the basketball courts out there. You see the pickleball courts going in. $795,000 for our critical infrastructure upgrades and our SCADA system through the ARPA funds. Well 7 is online producing. So bought a skid steer, sewer camera system, some software upgrades, and more ARPA-funded repairs to water and sewer lines, police car, and some improvements out there at the park to security. So we've done a lot with this year's budget. So I just wanted to review that a little bit. As far as governance and development, the street maintenance fund was established. I would like to say that I do believe we're running pretty efficient this year. And I do hope to give back a good chunk from that efficiency that will end up going in the street maintenance fund piggy bank, because that's going to be one of the ways we pursue our street problem here. We've established the rules of council procedure, the code of conduct, impact fees as of tonight. We've got our citizen portal up and running, which I would mention for the public listening and our audience. Please give us some time when things are sent in, because we do have a pretty good backlog since we did open that up, and we address those issues by priority. So if you have some trees in a right-of-way or something, that's going to take a lower priority than some major water leak, sewer leak, or whatever. So, and then as far as developments, you see a lot of dirt turning. Sunset Ridge, Ashton Home Place, the Canyon, Allsups, and Tractor Supply. These developments, as you're going to see, are going to be kind of the lifeblood to our budget coming up. So I'll explain that. Let's start on the revenue side. And this is kind of the first preliminary overview, as I mentioned in my staff report. Adjustments will be made to this based off of council feedback and your priorities. I did get your priorities several sessions ago. I took note to kind of what you wanted to see, and I've built in several of those items to this budget and some priority items that I felt we needed to build in. So on the revenue side, we're projecting an increase of 293,000, which is good, but a little bit flat, and we anticipated that. This is a slide I showed you last year, kind of a little bit of a leveling off of those property tax for a part of our general fund revenue. So this is without the developments, though. So as those developments start to roll in, you'll see this line start to spike back up at a faster rate. So this is the same slide I showed you last year. This in the orange is our expenses, and the blue is our revenue over time. And we have gotten to the point with this fiscal year's budget where our expenses are slightly outpacing our revenues, but it's not all doom and gloom. We have some tools in the war chest that we can use based off of council feedback. And if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I'm happy to stop and answer any questions. So it's just kind of another view of that historically. You see in that last column to the right our fiscal year 25 proposal. At the moment, you see for the first time the expenditures are outpacing our revenues. But again, we've built in several priority items that were asked for into this budget, and we can adjust those to stay within our means. So here's a breakdown of the general fund estimated expenditures by department. As you can see, public safety is pretty much the lion's share of that, which is quite normal and customary. And as far as our high impact expenditures, which are affecting this fiscal year, we've had, of course, continued inflationary effects, and this is everything from medical supplies, operating supplies. All of our contractor pricing has gone up. All of our rates have increased, unfunded state mandates, etc. We did have a pretty big hit, as Charles told you earlier, to our TML insurance. Across the state, they went up considerably, and we had to absorb a pretty big hit for that. And the biggest hit of all, I don't know if you remember last year or not, but at the very end, once all the dust settled for our budget, we had about $50,000 to $80,000 in contingency in the positive, which wasn't a lot in our size of budget. But when you weigh, for example, this one issue with healthcare benefits, they went up again from last year. They went up 20% more again. So we went from a $928,000 obligation to, if we keep the same plan, the same benefits, $1.113 million. So again, with that flat line that I showed you, this is where our expenditures outpace our revenue. Okay, I'm going to go over tonight the general fund M&O, and I need to let you know you will get your detailed budget books. This is just kind of again a high-level overview. Just get your input. I'll go plug in those adjustments, and then we'll get the budget books out to you and go from there. Yes?
This might not be the time to talk about it, but how about our police force with their radios and stuff that they need? I mean,
Yeah.
we
Good.
gotta figure that.
Good question.
Good
Question. I think from some efficiencies and salary vacancies this year, I have asked that we purchase some of those radios. That is a public safety, life safety item. I don't want them out there with bad radios. So we went ahead and purchased half of those needed radios up front, and we'll address those. What's that? I think we're addressing those too. Yeah, we're making sure they have their life safety items that they need.
Is there a safe water department
Absolutely.
people out there
Yeah. When it,
do, if we've got somebody out here
yeah.
that do their job.
Yeah, and that's my priority one. Will tell you, our public safety, making sure they have the tools for for life safety, right? So, okay, so let me start by line item. In administration, I did add a little bit for our attorney fees. Now that we are using two, no offense, Mr. Rell.
None taken.
I added more money.
But you left off a zero.
Yeah, I did. We had quite a bit in there, but I added a little bit more. As we're learning, we're having to, we are able to use, you know, the attorneys a little bit less, as we know, you know,
Sure.
on our side for daily items. And again, please stop me if you have any questions. City Secretary's office, we have added, we've added a few items, but the two primary things are an agenda software module upgrade in Civic Plus, and then we get a lot of open records requests. There's some software called Next Requests, and this will help organize and expedite those. I don't know if you remember, it was probably 8 months ago, we had some nagging open records requests that were going past the time, and being, you know, this helps coordinate all of that. On the finance department side, the amount difference, you see that 8,900 there. I will let, if you have any questions on this, I'll ask Charles to come up, but we've added some training for next year. As you know, Charles is retiring, and I wish him well, but I know we will definitely miss him. I think we have a good succession plan going forward. He's willing to stay kind of as a professional services consultant to help us make sure we're staying on the straight and narrow as he's done for the past several years. So I am comfortable with that plan. And there's an arbitrage rebate report expense in there as well. Okay, human resources. This shows a decrease. We had a line item in human resources to take care of employee relations. This is whether we were going to have a pizza party for staff or whatever, employee recognition, etc. We moved that to departmental instead of just HR. So, and this is one we've had quite a bit of savings in this year with our contracted position at the moment. Okay, the police department, overall, you can see, again, this is not a very interesting budget because there's not a lot of bells and whistles in it. Again, because of that expense versus revenue thing, if you see a $1.68 or $1.65 million budget only went up by $3,277. That's not even keeping up with inflation. So the chief was able to, you know, run pretty efficiently. He does need some minor equipment. We are proposing some things on the personnel side and staffing side for the police department. So this particular line item is pretty narrow. On code enforcement, we added just a little bit. We have some in there, but we added a little bit for some demolition and some cleanup on some potential substandard housing issues that we'll have in 25. And animal control, really no change there. I feel like I'm going too fast. Y'all are very quiet. All right, fire department. We had a utility increase. We were receiving a gas bill that was coming to City Hall, and it was coded incorrectly that it was actually for the fire department. There's been some utility increase costs. Some M&R increase on some of those older, I call them light vehicles, the Tahoe, et cetera. A couple sessions ago, you did approve to purchase a replacement for that if we could afford it through some deficiencies in budget. We still don't know, it's still too close. I don't want to spend the money, the chief nor I don't want to spend the money and then go over budget. So we're going to have to wait till September on that one to get a better view on that. Now the problem is, if we don't get that vehicle, we won't be able to afford it in 25 because of how tight the budget is going to be. So it would be very advantageous to get that if we can. Some minor tools and equipment. We've had a state mandated EMS compliance that was about $4,000 to comply with that. And of course, again, our EMS supply costs are increasing. But I will mention we are doing, all of staff is doing a big study on our fee schedule. We're trying to come up with a master fee schedule, things that may need to be tweaked or increased because of some of this cost, like EMS supplies, and we'll bring that back to council to help offset some of those increases with revenue, hopefully. Okay, emergency management remained the same. We did get a new emergency management outdoor warning system computer installed, and we're working on a few firewall issues to get that where we can get into it, but we can still manually activate at the moment. So, okay, municipal court, virtually the same. Community center, we had a pretty good amount of supplies. We reduced slightly some of the supply item for the community center. Okay, this is the big one that's a little bit misleading, so I'll walk through this one. In non-departmental, we show negative $89,730, but there were several items that were keyed non-departmental that should have been split with water and wastewater. This has to do with some of the IT services, for example, that they can help split the cost with. And so overall, with our TML insurance and our IT cost, we actually went up $131,000, but we were able to split that between the different funds because they can share that. So that's why you see the negative here. You're going to see a bigger hit to water and wastewater funds to help offset those added costs. Excuse me. Okay, streets. The only reason this one is showing down is because if you remember, we bought a lot of capital purchase items last year, and we no longer have to rent those items, which were pretty expensive every time we rented them. So we were able to reduce that rent significantly. So we have some savings there. Okay, and here's the big number that y'all have been waiting for on the general fund side. Right now, we're sitting at $6,094,000 worth of expenses and $6,002,000 in revenue. So right now, we're showing a budget shortfall of $92,000. But I want to show you what we've built in and explain how, the dust isn't settled yet on this. We'll get a better view by our August the 1st council meeting, okay? So the items that were built in for council consideration, and again, I'd like any feedback to these. The items that were built in are the annual 3% COLA. I would like to speak to the Toto Verde, that's our IT service provider. They came in, and as I mentioned earlier in my city manager report, they came in and did a full audit on everything, our equipment, the age of our equipment, our security, etc. And they gave me like a $90-some thousand list of stuff that we need to replace. Some of it quite old. For example, a Windows server that was so old that it was no longer even receiving updates or security updates. And after talking, having some one-on-one meetings with council, I understand the vigilance that council and staff needs to have towards our cybersecurity. So I asked Toto Verde, I said, well, 96,000, we can't do that. What is the low-hanging fruit? What is the tier 1 priority items that we need to address this year to, particularly for cybersecurity? And then the need to have items next year and the good to have items the following. I asked for kind of a 3-year plan. So we came up with this list of 36,000 to kind of address, again, some of our cybersecurity issues, backups, etc., with our hardware and software. The other item built into this budget, and the chief is ready to speak to this tonight, all right, okay. Is the request for 1 additional police officer. This has to do with equalizing shifts and several different things, but I would be happy to turn it over to the chief here in just a second if you would like to discuss that police officer position. Built into this as well, when we were doing a pay study that had to do with a public safety step plan study. And I noticed on the pay, some of the positions I felt there needed to be some parity pay with PD and FD. That's just me, that in my former worlds, we had parity pay, and it was overall over all officers, it was a very small adjustment to kind of equal out the police and fire into a public safety plan where they're kind of even on those pay scales. And this would help set us up for a potential public safety step plan, which I'll address as well. Finance, we are also prepared to speak to the need of a departmental position with finance. And also built into this presentation, again, as you see, negative 92,000, is our current health care benefit plan. We did get those numbers back, and I showed you how much they are, 20% more, which cost $1.113 million. So something has to give as far as, we can't get everything, but I wanted to build in some of the items for you to consider. Some items not built in, because I didn't want to come to you with a budget that was $500,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 in the red, is a public safety step plan. This was talked about a couple council meetings ago as something to look at. I did do a study on that, and let me speak to the step plan. That it's a great thing to have. It helps keep us competitive. We don't get way out of whack to where we're having to make huge adjustments. It's clean. It's easier for budgeting purposes. And so a step plan is a good thing. We'll have to wait till all the dust settles to see, or council's priorities to see, what we can afford as far as that goes. And that addresses police and fire.
Are you talking about a raise?
Yes. So, did you have? Okay. So I've also been approached by several retirees, and y'all probably know the history on this much better than I do, but apparently many, many moons ago, the city was in pretty dire straits where they had to have a town hall meeting and decide whether to continue or dissolve or raise taxes, etc. Well, when that decision was made, pretty much everything that could be cut was cut to bring the budget back in line. The retirement system that all the public employees are under was their cost of living adjustment was cut down from either 50 or 70% to 30%. And they have asked me to look at that and at least bring it to council for possible consideration to move that back up, because as you know, if you have, $1,000 a month that you're receiving from this pension, and 10 years from now, with the inflation the way it's been, it's nowhere close to keeping up at that amount. So they've asked me to bring that. I did the numbers on that. But again, as we see new developments and have more capacity to address some of these things, where we're not starting in the red, we may be able to look at some of these. I have it for you, if that's something you want me to put, attention to, but I did not build those two into this budget. So this number that you're seeing is not with that step plan or COLA, and is the maximum health care benefits that we currently have. Is there any questions on that for myself, for police chief, or the finance department? Okay, good question. So where do we go from here? So there's a few things that we need, I keep mentioning, to let the dust settle. We got our preliminary numbers for property taxes, which is what we base this off of. Those are pretty good, but we don't have the finalized numbers. I believe it's next week we receive those. We do anticipate those go up a little bit. Generally, we do anticipate more from those, so we'll see a small bump in revenue. If we have to, we can look at those positions that we're requesting. We can't just simply, unless council wants to run a deficit this year, we can look at those positions and readjust those that we're asking for. And then another option is to look at healthcare benefits. August 1st, I have our healthcare benefits company scheduled for our council meeting, and that's one of the primary items for that council meeting. I wanted to get it to you earlier, and we are going to have a much different presentation than last year. We'll have kind of the nuts and bolts. You'll have all the information, but what I would like to do is show you kind of, okay, here's option A, B, C, D. Where would you like to go from here? And it'll give you time to review everything. It'll give us time to discuss healthcare benefits. I'm not prepared to discuss those tonight because that is scheduled for August 1st. But that could be an adjustment there. And you saw this last year, but this red dot is kind of where we're at compared to everybody else. I would like to suggest.
I'd like to go back where taxes are.
Okay.
I had a few people, elderly people, we're not talking 60, 70 years old, we're talking older. They asked me about this tech freeze for older people, elderly people, and I think I called you about it. And I think these people, these taxes to go up for the old people, the elderly people. What's going to happen to them when they can't even pay the bills now almost? They asked me, do we have a freeze on for elderly people? I said, I don't think. That's again why I called you.
Yeah.
So we need to think about that for elderly people that can't afford it. What do we do with them?
Yeah, I don't know when council passed that.
The tax freeze? Yeah, it's been
We passed that.
a couple of years,
Yes.
at least.
So they should be frozen, and now, their cost of living still
Right.
increases, and they're on a fixed income, and it's tough,
And that's what they are. That's what they're complaining about, their income.
Yeah.
So we need to try to figure something out, maybe. Thank you.
Yep. So here's our current benefit, kind of where we're at compared to everybody else. You notice kind of in this quadrant, richer benefits and lower contributions. We do have some of the better benefits anywhere in the Metroplex. You see Frisco, Addison, Mansfield, et cetera. But that also keeps employees. So, so something to consider. If you're looking at healthcare benefits, which we know we have to do, that's been a priority for, several years now, I would suggest moving incrementally, some kind of baby step that still keeps us competitive. We don't want to be uncompetitive. So I think we can accomplish a pretty significant savings and a slight increase to healthcare benefits.
I talked to Gary Hine about this healthcare benefit, and he said the same thing I did. The reason we gave them a raise is where they wasn't making the money, so we gave them the insurance. So now we're giving them money, but they still get the same thing, the insurance. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's still.
They got money, but they're getting the same insurance. So like Gary said, I'm talking for Gary, we should think about that, the insurance, for sure. And I mean, I'm just saying from a guy that knows all this stuff.
Well, that'll be a council decision, and I'll get you some good numbers and some good options August 1st, and we can have that full discussion. So, again, option A, for example, continuation of current coverage. We'll have option B, C, D, etc., and information for you in advance, and time for a couple meetings on the healthcare cost. I know that's a priority for council. I've heard you. So, again, it's not all dire. We have some ability to come in budget. Yes?
Before we leave this section, I was looking at the numbers here. I noticed the police only asked for about a $3,000 increase in their, I'm assuming their supplies type budget. So he must want this extra police officer pretty hard. So I'd like to hear from him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wouldn't mind.
All right.
What his thoughts are behind this extra officer, or half an officer, I guess.
Mayor, council, how are y'all doing? So basically, I've been here for almost a year, and you knew my thoughts when I first came here. I've blended other agencies, I did staffing models, and I gave y'all my opinion about the staffing compared to the calls for service that this city had. And I could throw up analysis, I could throw you how many officers per ratio for a population this size. But I wanted to hear from the citizens. I wanted to see what the department was capable of doing and the dynamics of the city. So I got the feedback from the citizens, and basically I wanted to know what they felt services for the police, what they looked like, and what would be successful to them. And basically, what you'll hear, and y'all have heard it over the last 10 years, y'all have not increased the police department staffing for over 10 years. Y'all lost position, but then you added it back in, I think, 2017, 18. And what it will do is it's going to deter crime. It's going to give faster response time. Some of y'all have come to me saying, okay, I call for an officer, but they can get there for like 2 or 3 hours, or we didn't make contact with them. Sometimes we only have one officer on duty during a shift. Or if you have two, I promise you major accidents, going to take them out of pocket for 2 or 3 hours. Or if they have to do an emergency detention order, take them to the hospital or DWI, that's another 2 or 3 hours. So having an additional officer that's needed is going to help plug in a gap. If you look for uniformity, we have one shift right now that works with one officer. The rest of them have 2, and that's when we're fully staffed. So when we're not fully staffed, we're down 2 positions right now, we have to compensate for somehow. And it is a challenge. Every 2 weeks, you put the schedule up there, and there's no room for error. If one person calls in sick, one person calls in or goes in for training, we have to pull people in, or I have to work nights, or we have to cover it from somehow. For the community, it just enhances interactions. We want more community involvement, more community events, and have another officer and dedicate for that. I think we'll have a really good thing for the outcome. But for the department, there's a reason why there's such turnover for the department, and one of the reasons why is staffing. If they don't feel like they can work safe by having 1 or 2 officers on a shift, then they're gonna go somewhere that does have more officers. We look at Venus, and we look at Alvarado, they're smaller, they have different dynamics, but they're up to 20 officers or more, and we're still at 13. The main reason why we're gonna need this, the Senate bill just passed, Senate Bill 1445, which is sunset bill in the 88th legislative session, and basically that's overhauling all T-Cole. Our commission over the state, we're gonna have to be more transparent, more accountable. That's gonna trickle down to every single police department. They're putting mandates on us for continuing education, more training, physical and mental standards, record keeping, and enhancing investigative services. A lot of that isn't just equipment, but it's finding time to do the open records. It's finding time to keep our standards up. So that goes right into parity pay too. There was a time and place. Our fire department is a great fire department. I'm proud of them. And there's no doubt with our fire department, they'll rush into any danger as long as the police say that it's safe for y'all to do that. So that's why the parity pay is important. And we don't want to diminish one agency over the other. But that sunset bill, they're going to do reviews and audits to every police department in the nation to see if you should still be a police department. So if you're not meeting those recognitions and standards and mandates, when we talk about the mandate portion, they will say, okay, you're not needed or you can't support yourself. And I don't want to be in that situation. I think it's very generous that we're asking for an officer mid-year to try to help absorb the cost of it. And I think that one officer will go a long ways in filling the gaps that we have right now. Any questions?
My question is, I heard you brought up Venus, correct?
Yes.
How many police officers they got out there?
Last I checked,
I'm sorry?
talking to Chief Groom, last I checked talking to Chief Groom, there were about 18, but that was like right when I first got here. I don't know what they did in the last budget, but I want to say he increased it by 3, but I'm not totally for sure.
But they're bigger. I mean, they got a lot more money than Keene got too.
Right, I said the dynamics were different. The population is smaller, but they have different revenue sources and stuff.
Correct. No, I know what you're saying.
You can't compare apples and oranges.
When people say Venus, I like to know because I'm not saying you, I'm saying council and everybody. We can't compare with Venus, Alvarado, Cleveland. We don't have the money they got.
Right.
We're never going to have the money they got. So we got to think of how we're going to come up with money to pay people here. You know.
And that's the challenge. That's the challenge for each department. It's all competing interests.
And that's what hurt us here.
And you had to prioritize things.
Correct.
So
I mean, I'm just, you know, I like it, and I'm just wondering about it. So
Oh, yeah.
just thought I'd ask you. Thank
That's
you.
fine.
Chief,
Sir.
we only get what we're reported, and that's natural. Give me a little insight to how the morale is in your department now as compared to when you came. What's the number of officers you had then, and what's the number of officers you have now?
When I first came to the police department, we had 6, with one leaving within 2 weeks, and the other leaving, already turned in his resignation. So my first month, we were down to 5 plus me out of the 13-person department. We were able to make really good hires in some areas, and we gave chances and took risks on other ones because we were able to get our pay up, that we have actually got applicants, which was nice. Then you hope that they gel with each other, because now you're throwing in 6 brand new police officers. You don't know about their experiences. You don't know about their how long they've been on the force and everything, and what their knowledge base is. So to answer your question, we were fully staffed at one point, but there was a couple of officers I don't think that met our standards, that didn't meet my standards, so they were removed from the department. One was terminated, one was asked to leave on his own accord to try to find a different area. The morale, I believe, I go in there and I listen to them and they talk, and they like the direction, they like the structure. The first time we had total policies put together in like 2 or 3 years, the former chief, he did a really good job in a lot of areas, but I think we have a really good culture now. It's more of a family dynamic, which I'm proud of when I go in there and they're all cutting up and stuff, but they also know they work. My biggest thing was when I first got to the department, and I do follow social media posts, is I saw one, and it hurts. It says, well, you're going to call our invisible police department to do this? And that's my very first thing, is we're not going to be invisible. I want people tripping over the officers, and that's what we're going to do. And they responded to it. They've also responded in the course that, yeah, there's a time to kick in doors and protect our citizens, but there's also a time to take care of our citizens, help carry groceries, help them in any everyday need. So the department's been enhanced. We're down 2 positions. We just hired one. We'll do a ceremony for him next month. But the morale, with the pay raises, with the working relationship with other agencies in this department, the reputation that we have, I was concerned about that because I didn't want us to be a joke at Johnson County, but we've been able to back up other officers on their barricaded subjects. They've been able to come help us out when we've had department meetings and stuff. So the relationship that I have with the other chiefs and our officers with the other departments is amazing right now.
So the report you're giving us is that it's a different department. Is that true?
It's 100% different.
What do you attribute that to?
I was going to say myself, whatever. No.
Okay.
Obviously, the city council.
Obviously, our city manager has put together processes, he's put together expectations, and he's somebody that you just don't work hard for because your fear of being disciplined, whatever. You work hard for the city manager because you see how hard he's putting his heart into it. And I want to lead my department like he's leading the city, and I want to go up there and show our lieutenant, he's up there working nights, we're taking calls, we're keeping things fixed. So an officer says, well, the siren's not working on this, we jump on it, because I don't want them not reporting, or don't think we're trying to help them out, give them the tools and resources that they need. So it's a combined effort of the city, and they know that y'all have their support. When I first came here, the officers that are leaving saying, well, there's too much political drama, they don't support the department, and they're really frugal or tight with their money. And y'all haven't shown this. I think y'all prioritize. I think there's some issues that y'all are going to work out during the next 3 months, and it has been a challenging year. But from a citizen aspect, we've had 3 complaints about not working traffic in this area, an officer being rude to me, whatever. But I will definitely educate them, and I go to people's houses and say, okay, where are you going? What's the problem? What are you seeing? So we don't dismiss anybody. So I think it's the example that y'all are giving, example I'm giving, in the direction of our city manager right now.
Well, I would like to add, chief doesn't lead from an ivory tower. They see the servant leadership, and that's huge, for a department. And so that's a big part of it. They are, from what I've seen, they are a great team.
Well, I think both of our departments, fire department and police
I
department.
don't want to leave out fire.
Well, I don't either, but I guess the point that I'm kind of getting to, and you addressed it, but we're glad to have you, and we want to try to work with these budgets that you have here. And again, I know I said it tonight, but we have a responsibility. What do people tell us? They tell us, we want ambulances, we want fire trucks, we want police officers. I hear it 10 times more for that than a lot of other things. Thank you.
Well, and I'd just like to remind council that he's asking for, was it 42,000 or something in that, 47 maybe?
62.
47,144,
Yeah.
$50,000, which is about a penny in the rate that we charge. I mean, 84 cents, if we went to 85, we could fund another police officer, which if that's what the citizens want, then I know it's an election year, but still, I mean, I feel pretty strongly about getting our police chief another officer.
Well, the thing is, I talk to him all the time, so, and I tell him whatever he needs, come to council. And we're gonna work with him. I mean, I'm gonna tell you straight out, this is the best chief I've seen here in my whole time being in Keene. And I mean, I go up there and talk to him. He walk a straight line with his guys. If they don't, he makes them pay for it. He handles his business right. So I'm gonna give the chief of police a big clap for that one, because he deserves it. Whatever he needs, we need to look out for that man right there. That's for sure. And I'm not trying to get away with tickets or anything like that. I'm just letting them know. Good job, Chief.
Anything else?
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Thank y'all very much.
Okay. Any other questions, or would you like me to continue?
Now, you can't get no extra pay or get away with speeding tickets either, man. I see you trying to be nice to him.
Okay, I'll briefly go over the water and sewer fund. I know we've got a big agenda tonight. So this is the slide I keep referring to, the iceberg scenario, a potential future sewer plant expansion, and why impact fees are so important, and we've got a lot of developments coming in that are not going to be funded, with these impact fees. Now, this is a 10-year scenario. The black line you see is our cash position, okay? And the iceberg there is if we had to do a $20 million sewer plant expansion. Now, luckily, there was a lot of good foresight in that sewer plant where it could be mirror imaged and expanded. And so kudos to previous administrations for that foresight, because that does help a lot. But it's still a massive endeavor and massive expense to do this. So if you push this iceberg down the road 5 years or so, 15 years out, you see that our cash position will rise, but it won't be anywhere close to this. So we will have to borrow funds. We will have to come up with some creative ways over the next 10 to 15 years to afford this expansion. So we need to start now, because I was here right after we built that sewer plant, and I remember how big of a shock that price was to a small community. So we need to start maneuvering now, and thank you for passing the impact fees. That will help raise that cash position line quite a bit towards that end. Now, I have also heard for a long time that our water and sewer rates are just crazy high, higher than anybody else by far. So we did, and I would like to thank Kit for this. Kit did a huge in-depth study that we would have paid some company, $20,000 to do to get this information. She got this information together for us. We did a big study on our water cost comparison for 1,000 gallons, for 5,000, for 10,000. So as you can see, for the 1,000 and 5,000, we're right in there with everybody else. 10,000, a little bit on the higher side. That's water cost. This is the sewer cost comparison. You can see we're, again, maybe even a little bit on the lower side. This is something to consider in the future about sewer rates as we try to avoid that iceberg. When you put those together, here's Keene, Texas, right in the middle of the pack. So we are not crazy high above everybody else, head and shoulders, on water and sewer. We're right in the middle of the pack. So I think that's important to point out for the public. And again, kudos to Kit for this study. She did a great job on this. So.
Can we put this on Facebook for the next week or so?
Okay, so here's our water and sewer revenue. We're doing pretty good on there. We don't anticipate any over budget expenditures on that. And here's kind of the breakdown by percent: water revenues, sewer revenues. Okay, water administration. This is where you see some of those non-departmental costs split to this side of the budget, because it is healthier, it's not as anemic, and we can do that. So we moved some of those non-departmental costs from our high increase in insurance and IT to water administration. So you see a difference there. Okay, water maintenance, we had a few cuts there. Derek's been doing a great job with his budget. Kudos to him on that. Okay, on the water department line item, same thing. This is some of those split costs. Again, even with these moving over, we're still healthy in the enterprise fund. And then the sewer department. And then we had a slight increase in our contract by 5.47% for our sanitation services. Okay, we will be looking at one capital item request on this side of the budget, and that is for a backhoe. I didn't feel like it would be a good idea to take all the money out and pay for it all in 1 year. We do have a lease purchase item for a backhoe. Derek, the current status of our backhoe, you said it's got a cracked. Yeah, and it's overheating, it's pretty old. And so we do need to address the backhoe issue. And so there is a lease purchase item where we could lease it for 4 years and then purchase it outright after that. So any questions on that or concerns, council, on that? I think
4 years?
170.
570, that's 140.
Yeah, 190. So you have that balloon payment. It's 35 for 4 years, and then the difference on that fourth.
Not 35 a year?
35 for 4 years, and then at the end of that lease, you can purchase it for whatever that difference is, 70
Right.
or so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's all I have as far as the kind of the high-level presentation. So happy to take any questions or feedback, concerns, make any adjustments. And again, I do think you'll see that number a little bit better. And again, we have some tools available to us to balance the budget, or, you know, I mean, there's several options. So, what say you, Mayor and Council?
Any questions, council? I think
You've made some suggestions. What, do you have priorities? Is there any one thing that you feel like would help you the most?
I do have some priorities. I kind of listed these top 5 items by priority. The healthcare benefit plan is a good one. I'm going to have to set that one aside for this next meeting. I feel we're going to have to figure out how to balance this shortfall somehow. I don't want to move that too far, you know.
I think we need to have that in a closed session and talk about it back there before we come out here and discuss it.
I'll have to defer to the attorney, to Mr. Brown, on that.
I'm sorry, I was reading something. What was the question?
I don't think we can have benefits plan in executive session. I think that's a.
No. I mean, you can't have a general discussion of general classes like that. Those have to be an open. Executive session, you can talk about particular personnel, individuals, but not classes of benefits for classes of employees.
Yeah. Good, thank you. So these right here, kind of by my priority. Again, healthcare needs to be kind of set aside on that because of these first 5 items. Now, I could certainly adjust these. You're the policymakers. I will adjust these to your priorities.
Well, from what you're telling us in a nutshell, we're 92,000 negative. Last year, we went into our budget session, I'll roughly say the number of 250-something thousand. So really, there's about $350,000 difference that we have to get to where we were last year. You've done a great job, but the numbers are disappointing for us, obviously. Yeah. It's not your fault. I've spent time with you in meetings to try to get our arms around this, and others have too. And I guess, counsel, what he's saying is, and he's asked it flat out here, what say you?
this is, again, you know, without those developments, that's why those are all important. Now, there will be, you know, there's sunshine on the road ahead. I mean, with these developments, and I forgot to mention, we've been keeping our eye on those daily to see if, you know, there's any lots selling, any development going on. And I figured we'd get maybe a couple development applications for a couple spec homes out there. We have 10, so that's huge. That means that they're not just spec homes. That means people are buying those lots and building. So that is huge. And as those, you know, rooftops come in, we will have much more ability to fund these things, current services, et cetera.
Being involved in the building industry in the past, though, I'll caution everyone that one change in the interest rate will change all of that. So we can rely on that, but we need to keep it on the back page for a little while.
Yeah.
How long does it take for us to get anything out of it?
I'm going to take
That's
that
the question.
following year after they're,
Okay, so we need we're gonna have to wait
yeah,
to get
there'll be,
anything.
yeah.
So we need to think about that.
There will be a tight year, you know, in '25, it'll be tight because of that.
And we've also got the potential for sales tax revenue to come in as soon as Allsups is here and Tractor Supply.
Yes.
So that'll add to whatever we also get from the developments.
Correct. And Allsups is moving along pretty well. Had a great conversation today with Tractor Supply. Had a few stumbling blocks, but I think we found a workaround for them. Meeting with a special called meeting with A Board and to discuss those, and then I'll bring it right back to council. I'll brief you right after that meeting, but we'll bring it back to council August 1st. Nothing dire.
Okay, Mayor. Yeah, I want to add to Mayor. I want to add to Councilman Bell's about the interest rate that you are talking about. There is a signal out there because of the current drag on the economy that we are anticipating for a 300 points kind of cut 8 times between now and 2025. So the interest rate might go down and alleviate that kind of concern of going up. Thank you.
I'm building my house.
Do you need any specific guidance from council tonight, or can they kind of sit on this and process it and send you some
Yeah, absolutely.
emails, and you're going to present it again August 1st? It's going to
Sure.
come back on the agenda. We're going to talk about the budget further in depth and get our booklets.
Absolutely. You'll get your
Okay,
booklets.
council, we might need that time to kind of sit. Yes, Ms. Beeson?
I was just gonna, we've all had, we just had renewal of our house insurance, our auto insurance, and it's double. So I'm sure the insurance here at the city, whether it be vehicles, property, whatever, it's probably almost doubled what it was last year, plus other costs that have increased. So, you know, looking at those increases, where I guess I'm surprised we're only 92,000, you know, to work with and try to get it leveled out. So hopefully when our tax numbers come in, they'll be better than we expect, so.
We can always hope for that.
Hope so. Okay.
All right, council, it's 8 o'clock. We've been meeting for 2 hours now. I was going to possibly call a recess, but since we have an executive session, I'm going to recommend that we go ahead and go into an executive session now and then come back and do the following general discussion items. That way we can take a break, our public can take a break, and that way it'll save time. Would that be okay? All right, our executive session agenda item number 8, we're going to move to right now pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code. The City Council may convene into executive session at any time during the meeting that a need arises for the City Council to seek advice from the city attorney as to any posted item and by the following authority. On the agenda tonight is 8A, Section 551.074, Personnel Matters Annual Performance Review of the City Manager. It's 8:04 p.m., and we're going to convene into executive session. Okay, it is 8:30 PM. We are going to reconvene back into open session.
Out of executive session. Any action taken?
There'll be no action taken from executive. All right, so we jumped out of order briefly with our agenda, so we are coming back, council and citizens, to agenda item number 7B.
Okay. Yeah, and Mayor, I feel an obligation to, as you remember, we adopted these rules of order after a lot of discussion, and the rules of order make me the parliamentarian, so I have an obligation to advise you on procedural matters. The minutes reflect, and I was here last time too, that the 12 propositions, there was a motion to adopt them as is, and that passed 4-1. This looks like there's wanting to be additional discussion. There's a pathway for that. Our rules talk about, but it has to be done through a motion for reconsideration. A motion for reconsideration indicates a council member wants the council to reconsider a prior action of the city council. It can be done at that meeting or the next meeting, so it's timely. But a motion for reconsideration may only be made by a council member who voted with the majority. So my recollection, there were 4 that voted to adopt and 1 that voted against it. And Ray, I think you had left, so he wasn't even here at that time.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson was absent, yeah.
So if y'all want to have a discussion generally as to why you want to reconsider these, that's fine. But before you could take any real action on it, there would need to be a motion to reconsider from somebody from the moving side last time to reconsider all of these 7A through G, or any one of them, or any 2 of them. It'll be up to that group, but procedurally, you can't revisit something that you've already approved unless you go through this process that you have adopted, which requires a motion for reconsideration.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start then with agenda item number 7B, review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to the city charter, section 3.03, mayor and mayor pro tem.
Mayor,
Yes,
may
sir.
I interrupt?
Go ahead.
We didn't have a motion to reconsider these.
He told me that I can introduce the item, and the person that suggested this, recommended this to be on the agenda, can go ahead and give their reason for it. And then if we're going to reconsider it, then we get the motion on the floor. So I believe, Mr. Gutwa, you're the one that requested this agenda item to be on the agenda. So if you'll just explain to the council why you would like a motion so that we could reconsider it.
Lisa, I'm sorry, but Mr. Gutwa voted against them. So why does he have the right to come back and argue now that he wants to discuss it again?
Well, I mean, I think the parliamentary procedures allow any council member who wants somebody to reconsider to at least urge that reconsideration.
So we have to go through every one of these?
Well, no, we can just do it all. You can do it. You don't have to do it. You can do it all in one fell swoop. I mean, and obviously there would need to be reasonable time limits. I think it was the excessive discussion last time that got it adopted, before we got through all of them. So I think with a grain of salt, but I would think that Mr. Gupta should be at least provided a short opportunity to explain why he wants to have all these things discussed again when the council clearly voted them all in favor at the last meeting.
And not all of these were requested by Mr. Gutwa, if I understand it correctly.
Okay.
So
Which ones were not?
there was one that was recommended by Mr. Foster. I believe that was number 7F. Is that correct, Mr. Foster? So we should, if we're going to give Mr. Foster the consideration to go ahead and present his case for why he asked for this to be revisited, we should do the same with Mr. Gutwa?
I'd rather withdraw mine.
I'm sorry?
I want to withdraw mine. And I voted for it, so I'm withdrawing mine.
I think it's probably appropriate then to give Mr. Gupta the floor to just generally make his pitch as to why we should.
And then if nobody makes a motion to reconsider it, it'll die, and we'll
It
just move to the next
die,
item.
right.
Let's just follow them in order then. All right, Mr. Gutwa?
Mayor, council, citizens that are here tonight, and those who are watching online. charter changes are very serious kind of business. It's the founding document, and every city normally takes a lot of consideration before making any changes. And I've gone through all the minutes and also the previous meetings, and I was here in the previous meeting. And I can take you back the history of the issue that we are having with this section 3.03. Back in November 2013, Councilwoman Lorena Marina, those who can remember, moved to reappoint Dale James, her third-term councilman, and incumbent Mayor Pro Tem, who supported Mayor John Harkiman consistently. But the council sat silent, and this is something that some of us are very familiar with. When Mayor John Harkiman called for a second to the motion. This item then failed, whereby the mayor got blindsided. Then on December 2013, Councilmember James Chaplin said that the Keene's charter did not address what should happen if the mayor does not bring forward a successful nominee. And after going through that, we can find out that the issue that we're having here is we have a provision here that is different from most of the charters that I've reviewed in Texas, home rule cities, where we are giving an option for the second meeting that the council will choose a mayor pro tem without the necessity of the mayor's nomination. And based on Mayor James Chaplin, this is where the issue was, and I know the politics that was behind it. There was economic development director that was involved. There was a city manager, and they were not getting along. Like, majority was pulling the other way. And because of this, I felt for the council to look at this, to try to fix this problem, where we are going to allow the mayor to make only one nomination, and then the council will make the remaining nominations. And the reason is because we have a provision here on the charter that says that when the elections are being canvassed at that meeting, we should have a mayor pro tem, like many cities. The issue we are having here is, if I'm correct, the way Councilmember Rob Foster is suggesting to withdraw the other item of a runoff, if we have a runoff and we are having a canvass, probably maybe a mayor is running, going through a runoff, the issue that we might run into is it will take several weeks after the canvassing of the elections for the mayor to be able to choose their own mayor pro tem. So by saying the next meeting, if you have a runoff, you have a problem right there, because then it means either the current mayor, who has to wait for the runoff to conclude, has to come back and decide who is their mayor pro tem. So because of that, I felt like, and I've talked to several taxpayers and voters out there and the residents. In order to fix this problem, I felt like we should be able to add, or at subsequent regular meetings, before shall nominate and the council shall elect on its member. This will take care of the tie runoff that is already in the council, in the city charter, or not having a clear candidate at the first meeting, like we had that back in 2013, when Mayor Ackerman did nominate, but because there was push and pull between the council, it not go through. So then they have to go back to try to fix that. And then if we have that verbiage, or at the subsequent regular meetings, then we can come back and strike that, because that will take care of should a mayor pro tem not be appointed by city council during the city council meeting, may appoint a mayor pro tem at the next regular meeting of the city council by selecting one of its members without the necessity of mayor's nomination. This is going not only to help the council that is going to come after us, but also it's going to address the morale. I had one council member, Bells, asking one of our directors, police chief, how is the morale? And some of these things is what normally gets, start getting into the city staff, because we come here the first day, we are swearing people in, and then because of this provision here, should the mayor pro tem not be appointed? And it has happened. In the previous meetings, I've seen Gary Enrick, a few meetings I've seen, witnessed by myself. He was not able to appoint mayor pro tem. He did it in the next meeting. But the council did not come in and pick their own. And we gave him that kind of grace. So if you doubt that, we can go back to the previous meetings. So I feel like we are not consistent, even though politics tends to play emotions and feelings. But we want to make sure that we are making something that is consistent. If we can't make it in the first meeting, let there be a nomination in the second meeting. As the mayor said, we can only have one of the 6, whether you are choosing or the mayor is choosing. So it will just help solve this problem that we had back in November 2013 and some of the problems we have had recently. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, or if anybody will want to maybe add to that, or...
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gutla. All right, so,
I probably should have clarified. And I'm not disrespecting anything you said, but nothing you said here wasn't said pretty much last time. In other words, this is not an opportunity just to re-argue what you did before. You were allowed to make a short statement as to why you think the group should reconsider these things, but not, if you just re-argue what you argued before, that defeats the whole purpose of the motion of reconsideration. And so, I mean, typically, I'm talking about like a 1-minute statement as to why you want the other members to reconsider certain issues. It's not to get back into the weeds. That defeats the whole purpose of the parliamentary thing. And also just advise the rest of the council at any time by majority vote can make a motion to end discussion on anything if you don't want to continue to hear the same thing that you heard last time. So.
all right, council, so on this item, essentially, this is the one that gave the mayor only 1 nomination for mayor pro tem. So you just have to consider, do you want to make a motion that we revisit this for a further discussion with the rest of you involved? And do you think this is the will that the people want? And essentially, that's your decision. Do you think this is something you should put forward?
So, Mayor, for the record, I can, for the sake of some of the taxpayers out there who have spoken to me, and I'm bringing this with a very clear, no agenda. I'm asking for this, but if there is no second, there will be silence, just for the record. So I would like to make a motion to
I
reconsider.
don't think you're able to make the motion because you didn't vote for the
Okay.
proposition the first time. It has to be
Okay.
made by one of the 4 members that voted for this, which excludes you and Mr. Johnson. Am I correct?
Right. Well, yeah,
Okay.
they can vote on it, but the motion
They
has
can vote on it.
The motion has to
Okay.
be made by one of the 4. So
Okay.
sounds like you're inviting a motion, and I haven't heard anybody make it, so I think it dies for lack of a motion.
Okay. Okay, council, I'm going to give you a second here. Do you have a motion anybody would like to make to reconsider this and open it up for review again?
I'd like to say one thing, Lisa. Last time I left.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, if you want to do that, you'll need to make a motion that we revisit and review this item for discussion. If you want to talk about it.
I'm not one.
No? Okay. Is that not correct? He would
Right,
need to
right,
make a motion
yeah.
if we want to have any discussion. We're just letting Mr. Gu explain why he asked for it. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to revisit this? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, agenda item number 7C. Review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to the City Charter, Section 3.05, prohibitions. Mr. Gutwa, 1 minute to kind of tell council why you would like them to make a motion to revisit this item.
So I did request for this because there is a verbiage that we did add in the absence of the city manager, filling a written directive with the city secretary, or in the event that the city manager temporarily absence or disability exceeds 30 days. This is a recommendation from the city attorney. And I know we have had some issues with this line or the charter kind of section here in the past. And the intention for this, I know, is to try to make sure that the mayor doesn't become the interim city manager. And as some voters have recommended out there, there is a need. We are a small city. As much as you are trying to push the mayor, isolate the mayor from the functions of the city, whatever goes here tends to come back to the mayor, because people will come and say, hey, I'm having some problem with the city manager, what's going on? There you go again. So by putting this here, trying to cut off the mayor from being an interim city manager in case of emergency, it makes it a little bit harder for the next administration, or even the current administration, if this one was to pass. A very good example is this. Let's say I'm using A and B. A is the city manager, B is the assistant city manager.
Okay, I'm sorry, members of the public cannot make a question.
It's been 2 minutes.
So let me complete that.
I'd like to make a motion to cease discussion on this topic.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, council, so essentially this is item 7C, prohibitions to cease discussion. So I'll just give you a second to tell me if anybody would like a motion to make to rediscuss this. Again, you're just deciding whether or not this is something you think the will of the people wants in order to move forward. Okay, no motion for reconsideration has been made. We're going to move on to agenda item number 7D. Review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to the City Charter, Section 3.06B, vacancies and forfeiture of office.
This is a very quick one. We did discuss about this item last time, and the concern was if we leave this verbiage the way we rushed it through, the issue is going to come with commits to or more willfully violation of city-adopted code of conduct. And we found out that if we have a different majority in the next election, they can repeal the whole thing about the conduct and all that stuff. So instead of, we want to have a charter that is simple, but also very precise. So to avoid that, I feel like we should be able to leave the way the section 3.6 was. It's a recommendation.
All right, council, on this item, number 7D, again, this is the one that gives more power to the council to remove people from elected positions, even after that person may have been voted into office. Would anybody like to make a motion to revisit or reconsider this item? Okay, no motion was made to reconsider this item. We're going to move on to agenda item number 7E. Review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to the city charter, Section 3.08C, meeting of the city council. This was the special meeting one. This is the one from changing the number of elected officials that can call a special meeting from 4 to 2. All right, Mr. Gutwa?
Yes, Mayor. And may I ask, we have 3 minutes. We have requirement for 3 minutes if somebody wants to speak. Is that? So is that a rule, 1 minute?
Well, this one was passed, the charter currently says to have a special meeting, you have to have the mayor or 4 council members. Well, 4 council members can't, unless they all spontaneously just come up with the same idea at the same time, have to get together and discuss having a special council meeting, and that violates the law. And it's a misdemeanor, and you go to jail. So this charter amendment is designed to keep people from going to jail.
Okay. But I'm asking for me to be able to give my thoughts on that.
He wants to know if he
We
can
have
have
3
a
minutes
presentation,
for
just like
public
public
meetings
speakers do.
and also the council, even the 5 meetings for the council. So 1 minute, is it a rule?
But we're not discussing, you're trying to convince us without going over 1 minute, is what he said.
Okay. So, okay, Mayor and Council, so this item here, so when is my minute starting?
When you start talking.
Thank you. So under this section, we have, as I can tell you, there are so many cities in Texas that are allowing majority to call for a special meeting. And we have Attorney General's opinion, GA-0717, the Attorney General opinion on this topic. And if you can go and review it, the city charter provision allowing a majority of the city council to call a special meeting inconclusive as to whether such provision violates the Open Meeting Act. That's by Greg Abbott. And another thing here that you need to consider is any meeting subjected to Texas Open Meeting Act may not be convened unless there's a quorum. Then that takes us back to December 2013, where we had 4 council members that failed to support the Mayor John Ackerman candidates, Mayor Pro Tem, 4 of them, council members Donnie Gore, David Abretz, James Chaplin, and Cherry Scrum. They did call for a special meeting to consider the vote for a Mayor Pro Tem, which got canceled. It was on a Monday back in 2013. So we have done these things in the past, and we did not violate the state law. And the state law is inconclusive. For example, there are cities like, we have the city charter section 31 that states requires the majority of a member of the city council. That is the city of College Station, Texas amendment that was amended back in November 2nd, 2021.
I'd like to make a motion to cease discussion on this topic. I gave you
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
Troy wants to say something, Lisa, if he can.
We're not having a discussion on this item. He's only explaining why it's on here until a motion's made. The public's not discussing it either, as far as I understand.
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Gutwa's time is up on agenda item number 7E. So council, I'm just going to ask, do you have a motion to reconsider this item to open it up for a discussion? Okay, no motion is made to reconsider item 7E, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 7F. Review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to section 4.09, canvassing of election and declaration of results. This one was requested by Mr. Foster. Did you want to explain? You want me just to ask if there's a motion? You were already withdrawing. Okay, Mr. Foster wants to withdraw this. I'm just going to give you a second here. Council, anybody want to make a motion to, since this is on the agenda, to reconsider, revisit this item for discussion? Okay, we have no motion to reconsider this item, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 7G. Review, discuss, and reconsider the Charter Review Commission's recommended change to the city charter, section 5.01D, city manager. Mr. Guba, did you want to speak to this one or withdraw?
Yes, Mayor, citizens, this item here is connected to 3.05C. And for the record, this is unusual. The city attorney, this 1 minute thing, I mean, it is on record, but it's not reasonable for something that is going to affect a lot of taxpayers' money here. So I can say that I did give a recommendation to be able to give the mayor to assume the responsibility of the duty of the city manager on a temporary basis until the city manager returns to his or her office. And then the second one, to give the option for 3.06C for the city employee designated by the city manager to be able to conduct that, function. And then the third one is the mayor and the city council may appoint any qualified person to temporarily serve as a city manager and fix his or her pay. Because if you elect somebody that is not going to work for free, they'll want to be paid. So you have to fix the pay. The council has to agree on that. The reason is, for number 2, if you have a city manager and assistant city manager, for example, they got involved in issues with, maybe they got caught, maybe we have had that incident in this city here. So something bad happened. So you'll end up either getting rid of the city manager and the person that was assisting them. Now you don't have any option. Who do you go for? So you are putting yourself in a kind of a limbo where the council has to come back and decide to choose. Of course, most cities have this option where they don't want to get involved with the city staff because, like Dallas, it's just complex, too many employees, budget, legal issues. So council tends to stay away from it. But according to the state law, if the charter allows the city, the voters, actually you can have a city manager being a city manager. You can allow the mayor to be a city manager, and it's not illegal. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guba. Council, do we have a motion to reconsider or review or discuss this item? Okay, moving on. We've already done agenda item number 8, executive session, and number 9. So we're going to move on to agenda item number 10, request for future agenda items.
Mayor, I have a comment.
I'm sorry,
I have a comment.
is it a request for a future agenda item?
Sure, we can make it that way. Thomas Gutwall, you have failed your citizens by not setting on the Charter Review Committee and then trying to do it here. You failed, sir.
Okay, do we have any requests for future agenda items? Because Mr. Easley, that comment was out of line.
That's fine.
I would like for us to discuss some way of working through when like July 4th fell on a Thursday night. Instead of canceling such meetings in the future, I would like for us to discuss moving them either to the next week. To me, it just puts too much time between meetings. So I would just like to discuss that next time.
Yeah, we can always have the city manager put that on a previous agenda when he knows that there's going to be one on a holiday, and then council can decide to, choose for a special meeting date and to make that one up. In other words, it would be irresponsible and rude to the staff to try to have a meeting on a day that's a holiday, a federal holiday. We wouldn't want to bring them in.
I'm not
And make
saying
them
have
work.
it on the holiday. That
Okay.
wasn't my point at
Yeah.
all.
No, we can just have him, I don't know if that needs an agenda item, but we can get it on there to get a consensus to tell him that,
Okay.
that we would like to have him make sure those get on the agenda. Okay, anything else, council? Requests for future agenda items? All right, it's 8:59, 9 o'clock PM. Meeting is adjourned.